The Last Stand of Aurora. Space Station Aurora hung against the backdrop of stars like a forgotten monument to humanity's earlier dreams of space exploration. Her angular solar panels, weathered by decades of micrometeorite impacts, still dutifully gathered energy from the distant sun. The station's hull, marked with patch repairs and emergency welding seams, told stories of countless close calls and hard-won victories against the harsh vacuum of space. Commander Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of her office, her weathered hands clasped behind her back, as she watched a sleek new supply ship dock at one of Aurora's original ports. The contrast between the two vessels couldn't have been more stark. The supply ship's pristine quantum alloy hull gleaming like polished chrome against Aurora's battle-scarred frame. Still brooding over the budget cuts, the familiar voice of Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, Aurora's chief scientist, broke through her thoughts. The older man's holographic projection flickered slightly, another reminder of the station's aging systems. "Not brooding," Sarah replied, turning to face her friend's image. "Just wondering how much longer they'll let us keep her running. Did you see the latest memo from Central Command? They're commissioning 3 new Stellar-class stations for this sector alone." Marcus's hologram shrugged, a gesture that caused his image to momentarily destabilize. Those fancy new stations with their quantum computers and AI systems. They break down if someone sneezes wrong. Aurora's been holding this sector together for 40 years. Sarah smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. The truth was, Aurora's days were numbered. Central Command saw the old station as a relic, an unnecessary drain on resources in an age of automated stellar monitoring and AI-driven defense systems. They didn't understand the value of human experience, of crews who knew their posts so well they could troubleshoot problems in their sleep. "Commander, the station's aging but reliable communication system crackled to life. Lieutenant Park requests your presence in the sensor array. Says it's urgent." Sarah exchanged glances with Marcus's hologram. Young Jamie Park was one of their newest crew members, but she'd proven herself to be exceptionally capable with Aurora's older systems. If she said something was urgent, it warranted attention. "On my way," Sarah responded, already moving toward the door. "Marcus, meet me there." The walk to the sensor array took her through Aurora's main corridor, a testament to earlier space engineering. Unlike modern stations with their sleek, automated transport tubes, Aurora required her crew to move about on foot. Sarah had always believed this created a more intimate connection between the crew and their station. Every creaking panel and humming conduit told a story to those who knew how to listen. She found Jamie hunched over her console, her dark hair falling forward, as she studied readings that meant nothing to Sarah. Marcus's hologram was already there, floating beside the young lieutenant with an expression of intense concentration. "What have you got?" Sarah asked, approaching the pair. Jamie looked up, her eyes bright with excitement. "Something impossible, Commander. We're picking up energy readings from the Kuiper Belt. Massive ones. But here's the weird part. None of the modern detection arrays are registering anything." Sarah frowned. "How is that possible? The quantum arrays can detect a fusion drive ignition from half a light year away." "That's just it," Marcus cut in, his hologram flickering as he gestured toward the displays. "The modern systems are too sensitive, too finely tuned. They're designed to detect known energy signatures. But Aurora's old electromagnetic sensors, they're picking up something completely outside our normal detection parameters." Jamie nodded eagerly. "It's like trying to read a book with a microscope versus reading glasses. Sometimes simpler is better." Sarah leaned in, studying the rhythmic pulses that scrolled across the ancient display screens. The pattern was unlike anything she'd seen in her 20 years of service. Could it be a natural phenomenon? Marcus shook his head. "No way. These patterns are too regular, too structured. This is artificial, Commander. And whatever it is, it's big." As if to emphasize his point, one of the auxiliary displays lit up with new data. The energy readings were intensifying, and now they could detect a clear direction of travel, toward the inner solar system. "Have you reported this to Central Command?" Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. Standard protocol required all unusual phenomena to be reported immediately. Jamie's expression fell slightly. "I tried. They said their systems aren't detecting anything, so they're classifying it as an equipment malfunction. They're sending a tech team to upgrade our sensors next week." Sarah felt a familiar surge of frustration. Central Command's obsession with newer technology had created a blind spot. They couldn't conceive of their modern systems missing something that Aurora's primitive sensors could detect. "Keep monitoring it," she ordered. "Document everything. Marcus, I want you to analyze these patterns. Find me something concrete, something we can use to prove this isn't a malfunction." As her crew set to work, Sarah returned to the viewport. Somewhere out there, something was moving toward their solar system, something that only their obsolete station could detect. The irony wasn't lost on her. Aurora, the station they wanted to decommission, might be humanity's only warning system for whatever was coming. "Commander," Jamie's voice was tense. "The signal's changing. I think it's accelerating." Sarah watched as new data flooded their screens. The energy readings were indeed intensifying, the patterns becoming more complex. Aurora's old systems groaned under the strain of processing the information, but they held steady, reliable as ever. "Send out a general alert to all Aurora personnel," Sarah ordered, her voice calm despite the growing tension in her chest. "I want everyone at their stations and ready for anything. Whatever's out there, we're going to be ready for it." As her crew scrambled to their posts, Sarah couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. Aurora might be old, her systems outdated by modern standards, but she was sturdy, reliable, and most importantly, she was theirs. If something was coming for humanity, they would face it together, proving that sometimes the old ways were the best ways. Little did they know, Aurora's greatest test was just beginning, and the fate of humanity would soon rest in the hands of a crew armed with nothing but outdated technology and unwavering determination. Echoes from the void. The next 12 hours aboard Aurora were a blur of activity. Commander Chen had ordered all non-essential systems powered down to divert additional resources to the sensor array. The station's old nuclear reactor hummed steadily, providing reliable power, while newer stations in the sector struggled with quantum fluctuations in their antimatter cores. "There's definitely a pattern to it," Dr. Rodriguez announced, his hologram pacing back and forth through solid objects as he studied the data streams. "These energy signatures, they're not random. They're structured, almost like." "Like what?" Sarah pressed, noting the hesitation in his voice. "Like language," Jamie Park interrupted, her fingers flying over her console. "Look at this, Commander. The repetition, the variations. It's too precise to be natural phenomena. Someone's trying to communicate." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. First contact. The possibility had always existed, but humanity had grown complacent in recent decades, their automated defense systems scanning for threats while ignoring anything that didn't fit their predetermined parameters. "Can we respond?" she asked, already knowing the answer wouldn't be simple. Marcus shook his head, causing his hologram to flicker. "Modern communication arrays are too sophisticated. They're trying to encode messages in quantum frequencies. But maybe." He trailed off, looking thoughtful. "Maybe what?" "We still have the old radio array," Jamie said, catching on to Marcus's train of thought. "It's primitive by today's standards, but it's robust. Simple electromagnetic waves, like what we're detecting from them." Sarah didn't hesitate. "Do it. But first, send one more message to Central Command. They need to know what we're attempting." The response from Central Command came swiftly and was exactly what Sarah expected. A formal reprimand for wasting resources on malfunctioning equipment, and a direct order to power down their sensors and await the arrival of the technical upgrade team. Sarah read the message twice, then made the decision that would change everything. "Lieutenant Park, begin transmission. Dr. Rodriguez, monitor any changes in their energy signatures. And someone wake up Engineer Collins. I want our old defense systems ready, just in case. The next hour was tense as they broadcast a simple mathematical sequence using basic radio waves, the universal language of prime numbers. The waiting seemed endless, the silence of space broken only by the steady hum of Aurora's systems. Then everything changed. "Commander," Jamie's voice was filled with excitement. "They're responding. The pattern. It's shifting to match our transmission frequency." The main display screen came alive with new data. The alien signals were now perfectly aligned with their radio bandwidth, and the patterns were becoming clearer, more deliberate. "They're learning our communication method," Marcus observed, his hologram analyzing the incoming data. "They're adapting to match our technology." Sarah watched as the alien messages became more complex, eventually resolving into recognizable mathematical equations. It was happening. Humanity's first real contact with an alien civilization, and it was being facilitated by technology that Central Command considered obsolete. "Send the linguistic package," Sarah ordered. They had prepared for this possibility, even if no one had truly believed it would happen. A series of basic concepts, mathematics, physics, simple objects, paired with their corresponding words in multiple human languages. The response was immediate. The alien signals began incorporating human language patterns, crude at first, but rapidly becoming more sophisticated. "They learned fast," Jamie whispered, her eyes wide as she watched the translations appear on her screen. The first clear message from the aliens came 3 hours later. "We observe your beacon. Others blind. You see true." They're talking about the modern stations, Marcus realized. Their signals are invisible to quantum sensors. They can only communicate with our old radio technology. Before Sarah could respond, a priority alert flashed across their screens. Multiple ships had appeared at the edge of their sensor range, their energy signatures matching the alien signals. "Central Command still can't detect them," Jamie reported, checking the quantum network. "Their automated defense systems are blind to these vessels." Sarah straightened her uniform, feeling the weight of command settle more heavily on her shoulders. "Send to the alien vessels. We welcome peaceful contact. Please state your intentions." The response took several minutes to arrive. "Your kind builds walls of false light, cannot see through quantum noise. But you keep old ways. Remember true sight. We come to warn." "Warn us about what?" Sarah muttered, but her question was answered before she could transmit it. New signals began flooding their sensors. Massive energy signatures, different from the first aliens, were appearing at the edge of the solar system. Their patterns were harsh, aggressive, lacking the mathematical harmony of the first contact. "Multiple vessels," Jamie reported, her voice tense. "Much bigger than the first group. And Commander, they're on an attack vector." The alien message confirmed their fears. "They come. The destroyers. Your new shields blind. Your quantum weapons useless. Only old ways will survive." Sarah felt her heart race as she looked around at her crew, at the old but reliable systems that surrounded them. Aurora, with her outdated technology and experienced crew, might be humanity's only hope against what was coming. "Send to all human stations and ships in the sector," she ordered. "Priority 1 alert. First contact scenario confirmed. Hostile forces detected. Aurora Station taking command under Emergency Protocol 7. As her crew rushed to prepare for what was coming, Sarah couldn't help but appreciate the irony. The most advanced civilization humanity had ever encountered could only communicate with their most primitive operating systems. And now, facing an unknown enemy that could render their modern defenses useless, humanity's best hope might lie in the very technology they had been so eager to discard. The old station's systems hummed steadily around them, ready to face whatever was coming. Aurora might be obsolete, but she was about to prove that sometimes the old ways were the only ways that worked. The silent strike. Central Command's response to Aurora's warning was predictably skeptical. Their quantum sensors detected nothing, their AI prediction models showed no anomalies, and their automated defense systems remained silent. But Sarah Chen knew what she saw, and more importantly, she trusted her crew and her station. "New message from our alien contacts," Jamie announced, her voice steady despite the tension. "They're calling themselves the Arctians, the hostile force. They're known as the Void Hunters. The Void Hunters have found your civilization," the translated message read. "They feed on quantum technology. Your advanced systems will become their strength. Only the simple paths remain safe." Engineer Collins, a gruff veteran who'd maintained Aurora's systems for 15 years, snorted from his station. "Simple paths? Eh? Well, you don't get much simpler than good old nuclear power and electromagnetic shielding." Sarah was about to respond when every alert on Aurora suddenly blazed to life. The hostile ships had accelerated dramatically, their energy signatures shifting into patterns that made their ancient sensors scream in protest. "Multiple quantum disturbances detected," Jamie called out. "The Void Hunters, they're doing something to space itself." Across the sector, chaos erupted. The newest and most advanced human stations went dark first, their quantum cores shutting down as if they'd never existed. The Stellar-class defense platforms, pride of humanity's space force, became dead metal drifting in space. Even the emergency systems, supposedly hardened against any known form of attack, failed completely. But Aurora stayed alive. "Status report," Sarah demanded, watching as her screen showed station after station going dark. "Main reactor holding steady," Collins reported with pride. "Nuclear power's too basic for their fancy tricks to affect. Emergency systems operational. Hull integrity at 98%. Commander, Marcus's hologram flickered with urgency. The quantum disruption. It's not just shutting down our advanced technology. It's absorbing it. Every quantum core it disables makes their ships stronger." Sarah watched in horror as the Void Hunters' energy signatures grew more intense with each human station they disabled. They were feeding on humanity's advancement, turning their greatest achievements into weapons against them. "Message from the Arctians," Jamie called out. "They say this is how the Void Hunters operate. They seek out civilizations that rely on quantum technology, disable their defenses, and harvest them. How do we fight back?" Sarah demanded. The Arctians' response was simple. "You remember, you keep old ways. Now you must teach others." Sarah made her decision. "Collins, power up the emergency transmitters. The old ones, radio and laser-based. Jamie, start broadcasting instructions to any station or ship with backup systems. Marcus, I need options for weapons." Her crew moved with practiced efficiency, their years of experience with Aurora's systems proving invaluable. While the rest of human space fell into chaos, they became a beacon of resistance. "Got through to the Centauri defense platform," Jamie reported. "They're switching to their backup nuclear generator. Lunar base responding on emergency channels. They're activating mothballed radio systems." One by one, humanity's oldest backup systems came online. Equipment that had been kept only because of bureaucratic oversight or sentimental engineers became their lifeline. Aurora, with her decades of experience and obsolete technology, became the command center for humanity's resistance. "Multiple ships approaching," Marcus warned. "Void Hunter scout vessels, by their energy signature." Sarah felt a chill as she watched the alien ships approach. They were beautiful in a terrifying way, their hulls seeming to bend light around them. But Aurora's simple sensors could track them, unaffected by their quantum distortion fields. "They think we're helpless," Sarah realized. They'd never encountered a civilization that kept its old technology operational. "Main weapons powered up," Collins reported. "Old-style nuclear torpedoes armed. Point defense railguns online. Nothing fancy, but they still pack a punch." The Void Hunters struck first, their quantum-based weapons designed to disable and destroy advanced technology. But against Aurora's primitive nuclear-powered shields and reinforced hull, they'd barely left a mark. "Return fire," Sarah ordered. Let's show them what obsolete technology can do. Aurora's nuclear torpedoes, guided by simple computer systems, the Void Hunters couldn't affect, streaked through space. The alien vessels, expecting quantum-based weapons they could absorb and redirect, were caught completely off guard. The first torpedo struck home, its nuclear detonation disrupting the quantum field around the lead ship. "Direct hit," Collins shouted. "Their fancy shields don't work so well against good old-fashioned nuclear fusion." The battle that followed was unlike anything in human military history. Aurora, using technology that belonged in a museum, stood her ground against enemies that could disable humanity's most advanced weapons with a thought. Her nuclear torpedoes and railguns, deemed obsolete decades ago, proved devastatingly effective against an enemy that had forgotten how to defend against such primitive weapons. "The Arctians are moving to support us," Jamie reported. "They're engaging the Void Hunters from the far side of the sector." Sarah watched as their alien allies joined the fight, their ships using similarly primitive technology to devastating effect. Together, they forced the Void Hunter scouts into retreat, buying precious time for the rest of humanity to adapt. But Sarah knew this was just the beginning. The scout ships were nothing compared to the main fleet that was coming. Humanity would need to remember its roots, to embrace the reliability and simplicity of its older technology if it hoped to survive. As she looked around at her crew, at the ancient but steadfast systems of her station, Sarah felt a fierce pride. Aurora might be old, but she had just proven that age and experience could triumph over advanced technology. Now they just had to teach the rest of humanity to remember what they'd almost forgotten. Legacy systems. The days following Aurora's successful defense against the Void Hunter scouts saw a fundamental shift in human space warfare. Central Command, finally forced to acknowledge the threat, had issued an emergency order. All stations and ships were to reactivate their backup systems and legacy technology immediately. "Never thought I'd see the day," Engineer Collins mused as he helped a team from Lunar Base restore their old radio array via video link. 20 years they've been trying to scrap these systems, and now they're begging us to teach them how to use them. Commander Chen watched from her station as Aurora became the heart of humanity's technological regression. Their outdated systems, maintained through decades of bureaucratic neglect and engineering stubbornness, were now the blueprint for survival. "Message from the Arctians," Lieutenant Park called out. "Their long-range sensors detect the main Void Hunter fleet. We have less than 72 hours before they arrive." Sarah studied the data streaming across her screen. The approaching fleet was massive, dozens of times larger than the scout group they'd fought off. "How are the preparations coming?" Dr. Rodriguez's hologram appeared, flickering less now that they'd optimized their power distribution. "We've got 17 stations and 32 ships successfully converted to basic nuclear power. Another 43 installations are in progress." "But Sarah," he paused, his expression grave, "even with every piece of legacy tech we can activate, we're still outnumbered at least 10 to 1. "Numbers aren't everything," Sarah replied, though she felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. "The Arctians proved that when they first resisted the Void Hunters. We just need to be smarter." A new alert caught her attention, an incoming transmission from one of the newer stations that had managed to restore its backup systems. The face that appeared on her screen was familiar. Admiral Zhang, the same official who'd tried to decommission Aurora 6 months ago. "Commander Chen," he began, his formal tone barely masking his discomfort, "Central Command has reviewed your proposed strategy. It's unorthodox. With respect, Admiral, unorthodox is exactly what we need right now. The Void Hunters expect us to fight like an advanced civilization. Their entire strategy is based on turning our technology against us, so let's show them something they've never seen before." The plan was audacious, even crazy by modern standards. Under Aurora's guidance, humanity's space forces were being transformed. Quantum computers were replaced with hardened silicon chips. Advanced AI targeting systems gave way to human operators using basic radar. Antimatter torpedoes were swapped for nuclear warheads. It's not just about going backward, Sarah explained to her crew during a strategy session. It's about combining our old technology with our new knowledge. We know things about physics, about space warfare, that we didn't know when these systems were first built. We just need to apply that knowledge differently. Engineer Collins had taken this philosophy to heart. Working with teams across human space, he'd developed a way to use outdated radio transmitters to create a coordinated electromagnetic pulse network. The Void Hunter's quantum absorption fields wouldn't be able to process the simple brute force attack. Lieutenant Park, meanwhile, had made a breakthrough in understanding the enemy's communications. They don't encrypt their transmissions, she explained, because they've never needed to. Their quantum technology is so advanced that they thought simpler methods were beneath them. But that means we can intercept and understand everything they're saying. The Arxians proved invaluable allies, sharing their own experiences fighting the Void Hunters. Their ships, now working alongside Aurora, helped install modified versions of their primitive technology across human space. Your people learned quickly, the Arxian commander transmitted. You remember the old ways faster than most. Perhaps you will survive where others fell. As the deadline approached, Sarah found herself on the observation deck, watching ships and stations practicing their new old tactics. The sight was almost comical. Humanity's most advanced vessels, pride of their space fleet, now moving like their ancestors' ships, using chemical thrusters and ballistic trajectories instead of quantum drives. It's like watching a ballet performed by someone wearing combat boots, Marcus commented, his hologram appearing beside her. Not very elegant, but surprisingly effective. Sarah nodded. The latest simulation had shown their forces achieving a 47% success rate against projected Void Hunter tactics. Not great odds, but far better than the 0% survival chance they'd faced using modern technology. Commander, Jamie's voice came over the comm. Long-range sensors are picking up something new. The Void Hunters, they're accelerating. They'll be here in less than 24 hours. Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the familiar hum of Aurora's systems around her. Her station, once considered a relic, had shown humanity a path to survival. Now they would find out if it was enough. Send to all forces, she ordered. This is Commander Chen. Battle stations, remember your training. Remember what your grandfathers knew. And most importantly, remember that sometimes the old ways are the best ways. As klaxons sounded throughout human space, as crews rushed to their posts and powered up their newly restored legacy systems, Sarah felt a fierce pride. Humanity had been humbled, forced to step back from their technological arrogance. But in doing so, they had found strength in their past, wisdom in simplicity, and hope in the face of extinction. The final battle was approaching, and Aurora, the station they had laughed at, would lead the charge. A new dawn. The Void Hunters arrived like a storm front, their massive ships distorting space itself as they emerged from the outer solar system. Aurora's simple sensors painted them in stark relief. Over 300 vessels, each larger than anything humanity had ever built, advancing in perfect formation toward Earth. Commander Sarah Chen stood on Aurora's bridge, watching the tactical display with steady eyes. Around her, crew members manned stations that hadn't seen serious use in decades, their hands on physical controls instead of holographic interfaces. All stations report ready, Lieutenant Park announced, her voice calm despite the tension. The Arxians are in position. Every human vessel and installation that could be converted is online and waiting for your command. Sarah nodded, taking in the battlefield before her. The human fleet looked almost primitive now. Ships running on nuclear power, using chemical thrusters and projectile weapons. They were arranged in a defensive formation that would have been familiar to naval commanders from centuries past. Message from the Void Hunters, Jamie reported. They're laughing at us, Commander. They say we've devolved, become lesser beings. Let them laugh. Engineer Collins growled from his station. They won't be laughing when they get a face full of uranium-235. The enemy fleet's first attack came exactly as predicted. A massive quantum pulse swept through space, designed to disable and absorb any advanced technology in its path. But humanity was ready. Their ships, running on technology too basic to be affected, held firm. All units, Sarah broadcast on the old radio frequencies. Execute Operation Throwback. The battle that followed would be studied for generations to come. The Void Hunters, expecting to face desperate resistance from a crippled advanced civilization, instead found themselves fighting an enemy that had deliberately stepped backward to move forward. Nuclear torpedoes, guided by simple computer systems, streaked through space. Railguns fired projectiles at relativistic speeds, their targeting systems using basic radar instead of quantum tracking. The Arxians added their own weapons to the mix, their ships moving in perfect coordination with human vessels. They can't absorb what they don't understand. Marcus called out as the first wave of attacks struck home. His hologram flickered with excitement as they watched Void Hunter ships, their quantum shields useless against kinetic weapons, take serious damage. But the enemy was far from defeated. Their return fire was devastating, quantum-based weapons that could tear ships apart at the molecular level. Several human vessels were lost in the first exchange, their crews sacrificing themselves to protect their positions. They're adapting, Jamie warned, studying her readings. They're trying to modify their shields to stop physical weapons. Sarah had expected this. Signal the Arxians. Begin Phase 2. This was where humanity's new knowledge combined with their old technology. The electromagnetic pulse network Collins had designed activated, hundreds of simple radio transmitters working in concert to create interference patterns that the Void Hunters' quantum systems couldn't process. Direct hit on their flagship, Jamie announced as their coordinated attack struck home. Their quantum fields are destabilizing. The Void Hunters, for perhaps the first time in their history, found themselves truly challenged. Their technology, supreme against advanced civilizations, struggled against weapons and tactics they had dismissed as primitive centuries ago. But victory would not come easily. A quantum lance from one of their larger ships struck Aurora directly, the energy beam trying to tear apart the station's molecular structure. Hull breach on Deck 7, Collins reported. Emergency bulkheads holding. Nuclear shields at 60%. Sarah gripped her command chair as the station shuddered. Reroute power to the primary weapons array. Target their command ships. Jamie, signal all forces to concentrate fire on their weak points. The space around Earth became a graveyard of broken ships and shattered dreams. Human vessels, fighting with the desperation of those protecting their homeworld, pressed their advantage. The Arxians, their own ships proof that older technology could triumph, struck from the flanks. Hours passed, and slowly, impossibly, the tide began to turn. The Void Hunters, unable to feed on the technology they were fighting against, found their strength waning. Their perfect formation broke apart as they tried to adapt to an enemy unlike any they had faced before. "Commander," Jamie called out, her voice filled with disbelief. "They're retreating. The Void Hunters are actually retreating." Sarah watched as the enemy fleet, now reduced to less than half its original size, began to pull back. Their quantum signatures, once so overwhelming, had dimmed significantly. Without advanced technology to absorb and redirect, they had been forced to expend their own energy reserves. The Arxians are reporting similar withdrawals across 3 sectors, Marcus added. The Void Hunters, they're giving up. A cheer went up across the bridge, quickly spreading through the station and across all human frequencies. They had done it. Humanity, by remembering its past, had secured its future. Hours later, as cleanup operations began and damage reports came in, Sarah stood at her favorite viewport. Aurora, scared but unbowed, had led humanity to its greatest victory. The station's old systems hummed around her, as reliable as ever. Message from Central Command. Jamie approached with a datapad. There, well, you should read it yourself. The message was brief but clear. Aurora was to be redesignated as a training facility. Her obsolete systems would be studied and replicated. A new doctrine was being established, one that emphasized the importance of maintaining and understanding older technology alongside new developments. "They're calling it the Aurora Doctrine," Jamie said with a smile. "Every ship and station will be required to maintain functional legacy systems from now on, just in case." Sarah handed back the datapad, her own smile matching her lieutenant's. "Well, look at that. We're not so obsolete after all." As she gazed out at the stars, Sarah reflected on how far they had come. Humanity had faced extinction and emerged stronger, not by pushing forward blindly, but by remembering where they came from. Aurora, the station they had laughed at, had become a symbol of that wisdom. "Commander," Marcus's hologram appeared beside her. "The Arctians are requesting to establish a permanent diplomatic mission aboard Aurora. They say we've proven ourselves worthy allies." Sarah nodded, watching as ships moved past her viewport, some still bearing the scars of battle. In the distance, Earth shone blue and beautiful, safe, because humanity had remembered that sometimes the old ways were the best ways. "Tell them they're welcome," she replied. "After all, we've got some things to teach each other about keeping the past alive to protect the future." Aurora's systems hummed steadily around them, no longer a relic, but a bridge between what humanity had been and what they could become. The stars stretched out before them, holding new challenges and adventures, but now humanity would face them with wisdom born of remembering their roots. They had learned that true strength lay not in blindly embracing the new, but in understanding the value of what came before. And in that understanding, they had found not just survival, but victory.